Some of you saw my videos. Anybody here? Perfect. Love it. All right, cool. So before the presentation, imagine this. I'm sitting there, waiting for my turn. I'm pretty relaxed. And at some point I realized that I gotta get on a stage in 2 minutes. And again, my heart starts beating faster. I'm having thousands of thoughts. I start sweating. I feel lightheaded to the point where I feel like if I stand up, I'm gonna pass out from fear. Anybody can relate? Anybody had this? Maybe even 10 minutes ago when I was about to, right? It's interesting. So I felt this. Now what do you do in this situation? Fight or flight, right? What did I do? What do you think? Fight? Spartan mentality, right? Remember, that was many years ago. And literally what I did was I told my friend, Rob, I'm like, hey, I have a stomach problem. I gotta go. Before he could say anything, I literally I went through the stage, across the stage, opened the doors, fucking run away. I run away. Everyone, well, I don't know what happened after, but the moment I was walking through the stage, everyone was kind of in a state of disbelief, like, what's happening? Why is this guy walking out of the room when he needs to present? So I went to the toilet, my new comfort zone, right? Standing in the toilet, and this internal dialogue kicked in, right? So all this fear, all the anxiety, after a few minutes was gone, right? I felt more comfortable, had my new, nice, fancy comfort zone, standing like this, limited space, but I loved that place. It was a beautiful place, I felt comfortable. But after a few minutes, something much worse took the place of that fear and anxiety, right? And it was this regret. This feeling that I'm like a little baby. How can I call myself a real man if I can't stand in front of people and talk, right? I mean, it's not rocket science, you just have to talk. I know how to talk. So I was beating myself up in my mind. And then I realized that if I don't go back to the arena, and by the way, this all relates to trading. This relates to life in general. But I realized if I don't go back to the arena and I don't speak up, then how can I possibly live my life? There'll be another opportunity in the future or a challenge where I'll have to speak in front of people. So what will I always pretend that I have a stomach issue, right? And then become known as the guy who has some really big problem with his stomach? Come on, there's not a way to live your life. Because that would screw up your professional life as well, right? So I decided that I'm gonna go back, because essentially what happened was this potential pain, and somebody, I think you mentioned over there, pain and pleasure, right, before? Yeah. So the potential pain of going back there was smaller than the pain of not going back there, the pain of not embracing that challenge, right? And this is a big lesson, right? The lesson that whenever you're afraid of something, it's all about what you link pain and pleasure to. Now, you may be thinking, well, all the gurus talk about this, but the reason is that it is true. It is true, right? So you gotta link your pain and pleasure to the right things. So fast forward, I'm going out there, right? With my heavy legs, I'm trying to get myself back to the room. You know the feeling when you feel really stressed, your legs weight a lot. I'm standing there in front of the doors, sweating profusely, and I tried to shut off my brain, because if I started overthinking, there's no way I would get back into the room. I opened the room and then, you know, lightheaded. I felt like in some matrix. I felt like in trance. I walk in. Someone was literally mid-presentation, and I interrupted that presentation and I started speaking. And the reason was that I knew if I walk into the room and if I wait for my turn, the same shit will happen. I'm gonna run away again. So I'm like, okay, attack. I open the doors, I get in, I start talking. It's pretty bizarre. I wish someone had a video. I really wish. I would put it everywhere as a, you know, as a nice like cautionary tale. So I started speaking, and I realized something really interesting. I literally thought I'm gonna pass out. But I kept talking and talking and talking, and I felt more and more comfortable, right? And Mark, where are you, Mark? Are you there? Can't see him. Oh, okay, he's over there. So, I mean, as Mark said at the beginning, right, of his speech, he didn't feel fully confident. It's normal to have some type of fear, but he got on a stage, and how many of you could see that he wasn't fully confident? Probably none of you, right? He seemed extra confident. He seemed like he was in his zone, right? And this is exactly what I learned, that if you embrace your fears, they may seem very big, but the moment you take action, you realize that they are not as powerful as you thought, right? And we all have the story with, you know, the boogeyman in the closet, right? When we are kids, we think that something is in the closet, then we turn on the light, we open it, nothing is in there. The same thing happens in our lives all the time, all the time. So think about your own life and think about some of the fears that you managed to overcome, right? Like literally think about right now. Think about the fears you managed to overcome. Is it true that when you were not taking action, they seemed way bigger than they actually were? True or not? Yeah? True, right? Cool. Okay, so this brings me to my next point, which is really important, vulnerability, right? First of all, how many of you, it's a weird word, how many of you don't know what vulnerability